This how this innovative approaches can shape and improve the way we address the social challenges. And for addressing this incredible topic, it's my honor to introduce our distinguished guest speaker, who is visionary in the field of design thinking, who brings a wealth of experience and expertise in design thinking and its application to the public policy, a very resourceful person who is currently a learning experience designer and an educator. Ma'am is currently working with the Indian School of Business Hyderabad. She has worked with variety of creative fields for more than 10 years, including architecture, interior designing, gaming, visual communications, and much more. And even it's my pleasure to share with you all that she has mentored over 1,000 aspiring designers and also have conducted many webinars and workshops on design thinking. She is none other than Miss Nandini Ramakuru, ma'am. Ma'am, I and the whole team of Nitivaka welcomes you all in this webinar session.
Thank you so much, Jalak, for this really warm welcome. And I'm also super honored to be hosting this, to be interacting with you all on design thinking. So yeah, let's get going.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. It's our pleasure to have you here with us. So, ma'am, when I talk about design thinking in public policy, I feel like the common question arises in everyone's mind is what actually design thinking entails. And I believe that most of the audience shares the same curiosity what I does, like what actually design thinking is. So I request you to first give us the insight about what actually this concept is.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very important and a good point to start. What really is design thinking? But before I jump into what it is and what it entails and what we can do in it, I wanted to hear from the audience maybe what, when you hear the words design thinking, what is it that comes to your mind? There's already so much conversation. There's a lot that people are talking about. Um, so it'd be really nice if y'all could just put it in the chat anything that your thoughts are when you think of what design thinking could be. Um, yeah, anybody, any thoughts that y'all want to add in the chat? Okay, cool. Let's do this. Let's put a poll so that that becomes a little easier. Let's put a poll and let's see. So we'll put out our options of what design thinking could be, and maybe through that we could hear from all. Great. So yeah, these are some options. Please think about it. Okay, we're seeing some interesting responses. Waiting for a few more responses. Okay, maybe we'll keep this poll open for maybe another 10 seconds and then we'll close it. Okay. Okay, maybe 5 more seconds because I'm still seeing a few more responses pouring in. 5 more seconds. Anybody else wants to share their thoughts? Okay, great. Let's close the poll. So yeah, so I'll just share it over here. So some of y'all, is it visible to y'all? Can I just see like a show? Is it visible? The poll to y'all? Jalak, is it visible? Okay,
Yes,
great.
it is. It is.
Thank you, Samba. Um, yeah, so I'm seeing that most of you all, 70% have chosen problem solving and 30% have chosen planning things, which is pretty interesting, which is pretty much on point. It is a mix of problem solving and planning things. To some extent, it would involve visual layouts, logos, branding, and things like that, but that is from a problem solving perspective. Um, let's jump into what actually design thinking is. So give me a second while I share my screen. Okay. So let's talk about design thinking through an example. Most of you all have already shared that it's probably problem solving or it's probably planning things, which is a great start. It is sort of that. But let's deep dive, like how is it? How, like, design? How can that be problem solving or planning things, right? Um, so let's look at it through an example that, or a situation that we've all been through. One of them being studying. We've all, either some of us are studying right now, or we've been through it. We've been through the pains of it, the struggles of it, and we've all struggled through like some sort of a difficult concept. There's always been a situation. There's some concept we've not understood, right? So how do you learn? How do you figure that out? How do you understand that concept in that moment? What do you exactly do? How do you get through that sort of a situation? So um, so I'd love for y'all to maybe share in the chat what are some things that y'all do. What are some things? So there's some really complicated topic. How do y'all figure it out? How do y'all learn about it? Do y'all want to maybe share in the chat? Okay. Great. Simba saying internet research. Um, what about the others? Anything else? Jhalak, would you like to share as well?
Ma'am, what I believe is ki we just go through that topic again and again so that we can understand it. Might we can understand it, or we can see the videos through YouTube, or we can take the help from our teachers. So this is the various ways that we choose or we used to opt.
Right. Right. So basically, getting help from your teachers or watching different sorts of videos on YouTube, things like that. Maybe asking friends also. That also. Um, Maybe taking a break sometimes, that also helps, and coming back to it. So, so there are a range of things that we do to understand a simple concept, right? So there are something that I wrote down while I was thinking about what I've done in the past, and these are some things that came to me, which is like making notes or searching on the internet, like Simba's mentioned, or watching on YouTube, like you've mentioned, asking friends, asking your teacher or your professor, going to the next topic, or other things like maybe you want to just take a break, go to sleep, go for a walk, or watch a movie. So we are always doing different things to understand, and at the end of it, we understand it by, if it takes 1 day or 10 days or whatever, we understand the concept, right? So what exactly did we do in this process? If I break that down, first we've identified where we got stuck. So there's this topic, we've not understood it. So we've first become aware that this topic we are not understanding. Second is, we thought of a solution to understand the concept. So we thought of many solutions, like watching on YouTube or doing an internet search or something like that. So we kept thinking of different solutions. We've tried each one by one. Usually, I mean, sometimes in the first go, the first solution works, but usually that doesn't work, and we need to try different things. That then we tried again and again, and finally we understood the concept after trying many different things, right? And this process of trying all these things is what is design thinking. So while we do, and I've seen in the poll that most of you all have shared that design thinking is problem solving, which is great. It's actually a very simple concept, which is just identifying the problem, um, trying to find different solutions to it, keep experimenting with it, failing at it. And failing doesn't mean like failing, but basically that solution didn't work. So trying something else. And then finally, understanding the concept. So that is basically what design thinking is. If I move on now to how exactly did we do it visually, if I have were to put it. So say we are at point A, which is there's a certain problem, or Same example, there's a concept you've not understood. You've worked towards it. You've applied some solution. So maybe you've watched a YouTube video and you've understood the concept. So is it this way how we've solved the problem? Or is it we are at point A where we've not understood the concept? We are doing many things, it's complicated, it's takes sometimes takes a lot of time, sometimes less time, sometimes it takes more time, sometimes you have to try some 10 different things, and then finally we've understood the concept. It's like a very frustrating long process, and not even at B, it's at Z. So we've done like A, B, C, we've tried different things, and finally we've solved it. So from what, if you see here, I feel A to B is not really how the process, when you're trying to understand a concept also, it's not so straightforward. It's always very meandering. You have to try different things and things like that. And this is what design thinking looks like. This is how we go about doing it. So I want to again ask everyone is that since we've understood that it's a process where you get stuck, where you think of a solution, where you try different things, and then you finally understand the concept, and this is what it looks like, and we've applied it where we are learning, where we are studying. This same flow, do you feel like you've applied it in other places? Do you all want to take a minute and maybe think about that this flow, have you applied it somewhere else? Great. Akriti, would you want to describe or just put in the chat what other situation you've applied this? And everybody else also. Where else do you feel you've followed this sort of a flow? Everyone can take maybe a minute and think about it. Okay, great. Proposal writing. That does sound very heavy also. Daily life problems. Okay. Do you want to maybe describe any one daily life, any specific problem? And Simba, do you want to maybe talk about what are the different ideas that you thought of while you were writing your proposal, for which you have to keep trying? Okay. 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 Let's do one thing. Let's put out a poll. Okay. Akriti Singh, suppose I'm stuck at some thing, say cooking, baking. Great. Yeah, exactly. When you're trying to do something like that, definitely it can get difficult. You do need to think of different solutions. Great. Let's put out one more poll. Sorry, Simba's responded, I had to pull in different ideas to make the proposal more effective. Yep. Yep. Makes perfect sense. Okay, I'm going to see this again. Let's put out another poll. And where let's look at some of the things over there and see if any of them you're able to connect with, or you think can we put out the other poll?
Ma'am, if we will scroll the first question, we will get the second question. Like we have mentioned second question in the polls.
Okay, I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
you just have to scroll once.
Okay.
I request everyone to please scroll once, so you will get the second question.
Okay. Yeah. So if you scroll and you see the second question, yeah. So what do you all think? Have you all where else can you all apply this? Can you all apply to any of these other study preparation? Yeah. What else? The second poll. Okay, we are seeing the responses pour in. Maybe another 20 seconds and we'll close this. Okay, any more responses? Okay, cool. Maybe another 5 seconds and we will we'll close this now. Yeah. Okay, I'm ending the poll here. So so most of y'all have selected career decisions and study preparation, which is very relevant. I should have put a third or a fifth option, which is all of the above, or a sixth option which is none of the above. The truth is that all of those options would require design thinking. Even if you're buying something, even if you're deciding on a career which you all have selected, even if obviously studying, that's the example we talked about, and even if you're planning a holiday. The reason being, so for example, if you're buying something really expensive, say maybe like a, I don't know, a bike or a car or something, it's not like you realize you have a need for a vehicle and then you go buy the vehicle. You do research about it, you talk to different people. So there's a process about it, right? You understand what your problem is, what your need is, and then based on that you try and see which vehicle will suit the need. So there is a process to that. Even if you're planning a holiday, maybe you're planning with a family, so for that you will be looking at it with based on what everybody's needs are, and you'll be what exactly are you looking for, what kind of a vacation are you looking for, so how would you go about planning that? Maybe budget is a problem, maybe distance is a problem, maybe time is a problem. So all those things you'll be considering and you'll be coming up with so many ideas. So all of these situations would require design thinking, which means that, so the whole point of this is that we are all the time design thinking, and everybody is already a design thinker. We are all already design thinkers. The only difference is that a person who professionally practices it is that they are aware of it and they know what stage they are in. um, and that's the only thing, that you all would just require to be conscious of this whole process of knowing what you're doing as for problem solving and applying it in other situations, right? In fact, in my opinion, I feel like the best design thinkers are toddlers. And when I say toddlers, I mean any human who's of the age of 6 months to 4 to 5 years. Because at that age, if you've ever been around that age, then you know that you'll observe that they're constantly noticing things, they're constantly observing things, they're constantly reacting and responding to their environment. So they're constantly design thinking. So that is what it is. Uh, Jhalak, anything that you would want to talk about or add to this?
Ma'am, basically, I'm very much amazed that even a very normal thing or our day-to-day life routine also requires a design thinking. And I believe like learning design thinking and appropriately applying it to our day-to-day routine will be kind of sorting up our whole life. So
Very
I guess
true.
we all are puzzled or messed up at some point of time where we keep on experimenting thing to get out the appropriate solution for that.
Very true. Very
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. It was actually very well explained. But can we talk about it in a more elaborative way? Where else we can effectively apply this design thinking? Like, what are the other fields or areas that can be where we can apply the design thinking?
Right. So design thinking is basically, like we talked about, it can be applied anywhere. Uh, it's basically wherever you want to solve a problem, wherever you see there is a need or there's a pain point, there is where you can apply design thinking. I'd like to maybe break down to what what like at the core of it, what design thinking is, right? So if you think about it, there are many different frameworks, many different many different design frameworks. And if you are very interested in it, then definitely please go and check out the different frameworks. You can just google and you'll find these different frameworks that are there. Each one is very valuable, and they're more or less the same. Just the flow is a little different, but we're not going to get into the framework of each one. That's itself a different universe itself. And the kind of terminologies also used in design thinking, they are there are quite a few which I don't want to get into right now. And again, if you want to study it more, then you can. There are a lot of terms: prototyping, testing, empathy, iteration, ideation, research, and so many more. And each of these are very important. Each of these like go deeper, and they're very these are all very important in the different professions that we go into as well. But I just want to basically just once talk about the core idea of design thinking, which is listening, experimentation, openness to failure, and finally trying again. So if we just look at the core thing that we are doing in it, is basically we are observing. We are being very observant of a situation, of a person, of ourselves, of the environment, of a system, and being observant of what the pain points could be, experimenting, constantly experimenting, being open to fail, because that's a very important part of, because it's never going to be a one hit wonder. It's not like one idea and that idea is going to be amazing in the first go. So being open to fail and constantly maybe reflecting on it and again experimenting with it. So that sort of a process is what leads to solving a problem, right? And so speaking of that, the coming back to your question of what are the other fields that can be used in it, it is definitely can be used in public policy. It can be used in, it can basically used in any field. But public policy is a very critical field for it, because public policy is an area which is actively looking at solving problems at a systemic level, at a larger scale. So at that point, having a distinct methodology, a methodology which is aligned. So one thing about design thinking, if you notice, is the first step is listening. And which basically means the first step is you are in touch with either yourself, if you're solving your own problem. If you're solving a problem for somebody, you're in touch with what their need is. So you're aware of maybe what their daily routine is. You're aware of exactly in their life, in their day-to-day life, where that problem is. Maybe you're aware, maybe it's a community. For that community, you're aware of exactly where that problem falls. So being that sort of aware is what is central to design thinking. And that is very important in public policy, because how do you solve a problem if you're not aligned or you're not in touch with what at ground, what the problems are that the individuals of the people are facing. So that's how it's very critical in public policy.
Yeah, true though, ma'am. I even though feel like when we talk about the public policy, we have to look around the very even the simple things what they actually are facing. So we actually understood the core points or the very essence of what actually design thinking is and where we can apply that. But ma'am, actually I wanted to ask you, if we talk about design thinking in the realm of public policies, considering its significance and the core principles, so how this process will be specifically applied in the public policies when we
Right.
specifically talk about the public policy?
Right. Okay. So going back to how design thinking works, it's basically there's one individual or a group of same individuals. So for example, say we are talking about, again going back to the studies example, you're struggling with one topic, it's you, and for you, you have identified your problem, and for yourself, you're now finding out different solutions and you're solving that. So it's one problem, multiple solutions, finally outcome. The thing in public policy, or the thing about solving a problem, because you're still solving a problem in public policy, the thing about solving a problem at that level is that there are many people, and there are many stakeholders, which means there are many types of so for example, if we take say education, okay, and you say want to be involved, or you want to make a change in education policy or solve a problem in education at a broader level, you're not solving the problem. The broader idea is you're solving a problem for the students or for the youth, but there are many stakeholders in that, which means there is not just there's a student which is of different age group. That is one thing. You have the parents, you have different teachers, you have different administrators who are part of the institutes. So you have different stakeholders, different people who are involved in it, and that is what makes it a system. So when you are at that situation, it becomes a little difficult to solve the problem, because everyone's from everyone's perspective, the pain is different, the problem is different. So how do you align from that perspective? That is where design thinking helps, is because then you go down to each stakeholder, and from each stakeholder's perspective, you need to understand what the problem is. So design thinking by itself is simple because we all apply it. But when you go to public policy, it gets a little complex, because you don't have one problem and many solutions. You have 100 problems, which may be 500 solutions, and also the possibilities what solution will work for one audience. So maybe a solution will work for the parent, may not work for the teachers. Sometimes a solution for one audience may be negatively affecting another audience. So there's that sort of a thing also. I want to quickly move to show one more piece in this thing that you just talked about. So if I we talked about this. Okay, we've gone through this. So this is what I've already shown, which is where we are like, this is the same design thinking cycle, which is A to Z with many things. One problem, many solutions, finally an outcome, right? But when you're doing something like public policy or something at a larger scale, it tends to look like this, which means there are many stakeholders. Between them, there are many problems, and a solution towards one person can be impacting. So there's a lot of interdependency, right? So, so in that situation, this is design thinking, but design thinking at a broader level, which includes many people, becomes systems thinking. This is a little, honestly, a 1 hour session or this sort of a webinar is not enough to go into the depth of that. But the first steps to it is definitely thinking from a design thinking perspective, which is basically understanding the problem and constantly being in touch with the people. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, before moving ahead to the next question, I want you to, and I request you to please give us the crux or the core ideas in like 2-3 lines so that we can understand in more clarity what actually we should take from this. Like you discussed about the essence, you discussed about the important, what actually design thinking is, where we can apply it. So many areas we talked about where we can apply design thinking. We talked about the public policies also, like how that single solution cannot work for every individual. And specifically when we talk about society at large, even when we're talking about the individual, we need 10-12 solutions. And among that 10-12 solution, only the one solution is going to work. That will, mitigate around 50 to 70% of our problem. So when we are talking about the public policy, we need many of the solutions for every individual because we are talking about public at large. So when you talked about all these things, what should be the core or the crux idea that we should take out of it?
Like if you have to take away one idea from this whole session, it would be to just listen. It would literally be to observe and listen. That is it. Because a lot of times what happens is, when we're trying to solve a problem, we are doing it top down, which means, and this is also something that happens perhaps in the space of public policy, or in a space of where we're taking decisions of a larger scale, is it's possible there's a very high chance of being a disconnect between the people who will actually be impacted and the people who are actually taking the decisions. There is that disconnect. In our own lives, it's very easy to apply design thinking because it's you. You are impacted by your own decisions, your own thoughts. So it's a lot. It's more controllable. It's in your control. And if it's a day-to-day thing, so within days you can iterate your day. Like with when I say iterate, I mean within day you can experiment with it. You can keep trying. But on a larger scale, there is a very very high chance of a disconnect between what decision makers think the problem is and what decision makers think will work and what will actually work. And that is why the two, okay, I would actually say two things. One would be definitely constantly listening and observing and talking to the stakeholders. Second would be constantly taking feedback. So yeah, I feel like I'm talking too much about observing and listening, but I cannot I cannot emphasize on that enough, because this is something even I do, even though that after many after all my years of practicing design thinking, it is I still have this, where we all have this, where in certain situations we jump to conclusions. We just assume कि अगर ऐसा ऐसा problem है तो यही करना है. But in reality, it could be completely something else. So listening and observing and constantly talking to whoever the stakeholders is, I think the key takeaway.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Even being a student, when I do internships and all such, I have to keep on observing things so that I can take out the best solution from it for my career. But ma'am, when we talk about design thinking, what immediate step we should do? Like we are attending sessions, and I guess most of the audience will be now ki we have to apply design thinking in our day-to-day lives. So what should they do to immediately apply that in their lives?
Um, okay, to apply to their life immediately, it would be I think exactly what we've been talking about, which is again, yeah, observing. Um, so it's very important. So one of the main things is we tend to also go into a bit of an autopilot mode. So applying it definitely on a day to day, like being able to apply it immediately, is just being conscious. Ki, first thing would be to be conscious of what the problem is. Is there a problem? A lot of times we go through. So, for example, for me, when I was, if you're talking about the studies example, for me, when I was growing up, studying was difficult. Concepts were difficult. So, in my head, it was always ki I'm just bad at it. Like, I'm just a dumb student. I do not understand this. It is not my topic. It is not my subject. I cannot understand it. But the truth is, I have, I have not. So being, I'm okay with the problem. I'm okay to live with it. Instead of that, shifting to how do I solve it. So going into so only it's only now I've realized that no, there are different ways. I can talk to different people, or I could do different things, or learn it from different people is what I could have done. So basically, being aware of it, and yeah, just observing very closely what exactly is the problem and how do you solve it, which is exactly what you'd anyway want to do, even if you're doing something like a public policy.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. And I guess design thinking will be solution for all of us because most of us runs from the problems that we face day to day in our day to day life, mostly in our academics or career, whatsoever it is. But I guess when we apply design thinking, we get a lot of solutions, and applying one of them one to by one, we will obviously mitigate a percentage of problem, not completely, or might be a smaller percentage, but it will be effective for all of us. Ma'am, can we talk a little bit about the career in design thinking in public policy?
So so design thinking is anyway something anybody who's in public policy should anyway be applying it. Uh, it's it's a tool. So it's a thinking process. It's a tool. It's like how you would use any. It's basically a tool. So it's something definitely anybody interested in it. I think first anybody should be applying it. If you're specifically interested in public policy or something like that, then yes, it's a tool that you need to be actively practicing. And the best way to start actively practicing is to first apply it on yourself. Start small, because one thing with design thinking or any sort of problem solving at a policy level is it does get complicated because of the number of stakeholders. So kind of going step by step, applying it on yourself, and kind of slowly increasing it, and then finally using. But it's a tool that everybody who's interested in policy should at least have the knowledge of it.
Thank you, ma'am. I guess everyone, all of us have a core idea about design thinking and design thinking in public policy. If you allow me, can we ask our audience if they have any queries related to the particular topic?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
They can ask in the chat. I request all the participants, if you have any query related to the particular topic, you can ask ma'am about the same. Until the time we are receiving the questions, anything else you would like to add upon, like whatever you stated and whatever you explained? Instead of that, anything that you would like to add upon?
Yeah. Before that, I just want to mention to everyone that we have you all can unmute yourselves if you all would like to, and speak as well. That would also be nice. If you all would like to do that, please feel free. And also I see that Simba's asked a question, which is any specific example. I think you're talking about a specific example related to systems thinking, or applying systems thinking. Am I right in understanding that, Simba? Any specific example in public policy? Okay. Okay, so for example, just at the top of my head would be like the NEP, which is the education policy that has been very recently released. So systems thinking, okay, so the whole point is that that is something that is impacting everybody. So it's not just the students, but all, it's kind of created this ripple effect where now everybody needs to figure out how they can apply it, how they can execute it, what are the different plans that they can have for it. It is definitely going to affect the parents and the students. So it's not something that affects the single stakeholder, which is or the single consumer, who is the students, but it is the entire ecosystem of the education system in India. That sort of a thing. I hope that answers your question, Samba. Great. Please feel free to unmute if you all would want to ask something, or if you all would want to. Okay. Hi, Simba. Thank you for joining us. So I would want to maybe take this time and ask Jalak, how would you want to apply this in for yourself?
Thank you so much, ma'am. I guess I will take the inputs from this session, especially for my career. Like being a law student, it's quite confusing every time in which field you should go. Like which will be the one which will suits you the best, because we got the option of litigation, we got the option of judiciary, we also got the option of corporate sector. So it becomes hectic for all the law students, or might be from the students from the other streams also face the same, that which field will be the suits them best. So I guess design thinking will be, if I apply design thinking in my particularly in my career choosing option, I will experiment the litigation. I will also going to experiment judiciary now. I'm not going to stuck in corporate just because ki, okay, now I have decided कि मुझे corporate करना है, it will be corporate only. So this is the thing I feel like I'm going to take out it. now I have to explore a little bit about the litigation. I have to do internship in litigation for a month. Then I will explore the judiciaries also. And even though I'm working in the corporate sector, I was getting the thought that it's not the field that I prefer. But ma'am, I believe that sometime it comes in your head, ki, no, this is the only stop that you have to choose. You should not explore anymore, or you should not go for the another solutions. So I believe that after listening you and understanding the essence and the core of design thinking, I'm going to for sure explore the other fields or the solutions that I have. I'm not going to stop at that particular corporate sector. This is what
Yeah.
I have to take out from this.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. Because one key thing also for design thinking is experimenting a lot. Even if you're looking at public policy or your personal life or career, the options that you're trying for yourself, it's not looking it's not looking at it as permanence. That this is like the permanent final decision, but constantly tweaking it, experimenting. Sometimes it's not possible to completely change the decision. Then we or change the solution, but then we got to then tweak it, which is also where design thinking is helpful because it helps you understand exactly where you can again observe. As you observe, then we keep tweaking and then check it and then again observe. That's sort of the process.
Thank you, ma'am. So, like anything else you want to add up, or else we can round up the session if you allow.
uh I think that's it. I think we've covered the range of the limited range of design thinking. Thank you so much, Jalak,
Okay.
for
Yeah,
this.
thank you so much for ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was our pleasure to have you here. And I guess ki everyone has got some of the inputs from these sessions. And thank you all the participants for joining with us. And thank you once again, ma'am, from my side and from the Nitivarta Policy Research Institution. It was pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much, Jalak.
Thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
everyone for joining in.